Lesson 38, using properties of equality to solve equations. When we talk about inverse operations, we're just talking about operations that undo each other. So two inverse operations would be adding and subtracting. So if we add some numbers to undo what we added, we just subtract. If we multiply to undo multiply, we divide. When we square to undo a squared number, we take the square root. Here's an example. X minus 2 3/10 equals 5 7/10. If we take away 2 3/10 from x, we can add 2 3/10, and that will undo the taking away. But if we add on this side of the equals, we need to add on this side. So now we have negative or minus 2.3 plus 2.3. That goes to 0. And over here on this side, we just have an x left. And when we add 5.7 and 2.3, we get 8.0. So the first thing we did was we isolated the variable. We got x all by itself. And the second thing we have to remember is we do the same thing on both sides of the equal sign. Here's another example. 12 times m equals 8 4/10. So when you have a number right next to a variable, that just means multiply. So to undo multiply, we want to divide. So we're multiplying by 12. We're going to divide by 12. So that becomes a 1 times m, which is just m. 12 divided by 12 is 1. And 8 4/10 divided by 12 is just 7/10. Here's another example. If we have 2/3 times w equals 3/4. Now we are multiplying by 2/3, so we're going to divide by 2/3. Well, this is kind of confusing to have a fraction divided by a fraction. What if we wrote it like this? 3/4 divided by 2/3. Do you remember when we're dividing fractions, we can keep it, change it, flip it. So w equals 3/4 times 3/2. So we change it to a times and flip it upside down. So we have 9/8 or 1 1/8. Now instead of dividing by this fraction, we can just multiply by the reciprocal, straight up, right from the beginning. So one thing you can remember is when you divide by a fraction, it's the same thing or equal to multiplying by the reciprocal. Okay, here's a different example. 7 equals y. That also means that y equals 7. Since 7 equals y, then y is going to equal 7. That's actually called the symmetric property. And the symmetric property just says if a equals b, then b equals a. Or you can just swap the two equals, what's on each side. So when you're writing your answers, you want to express your answers with the variable on the left. So if you notice here, we switch 7 equals y so that y is on the left of the equal sign. And we could say y equals 7. So here's some properties of equality. There's several of them. One is the addition property of equality. And that just states if a equals b, then A plus C equals B plus C. That just means if we add the same amount to both sides, they're still going to be equal. So in this case, C is the same amount. We add it to both sides. There's a subtraction property of equality, which just says if A equals B, then A minus C equals B minus C. So we can subtract the same amount from both sides. There's a multiplication property of equality that says if A equals B, then A times C equals B times C. And there's one more called the division property of equality. If A equals B, then A divided by C equals B divided by C. And that's the end of the lesson.